The moment you awoke this morning was the moment you already knew that things were going to suck. Instead of the vibrant colors of your room, instead of the gentle smell of green tea, you had been rewarded a green tea scented candle during another adventure that automatically regenerated and lit itself every morning when you woke up. You were met by a dreary yellow beige-ish ceiling, with a singular naked light bulb hanging from it. Your bed was also less comfy. It was hard and smelled dusty. Your blanket thin and covered with holes. The mild panic you felt at the sight was soon washed away by the relief that you were in fact still in the digital circus, as your hand was still a goofy, oversized cartoon glove. Inside the digital circus, you had stayed a person, just with clown logic. You had big, goofy gloves on your hands that weren't really gloves. They, in fact, were your hands. Hair that smelled and tasted and looked like pink cotton candy, but it didn't dissolve in water. Your nose and most of your body was inflatable at will by blowing into a small hole at the tip of your thumbs. You just needed to concentrate on the body part you wanted to inflate, including your hands, your feet, your stomach, your face, and yes, your breasts. The only downside was whenever you used this ability, your nose instantly would swell to a round, bulbous shape that glowed in a light red. Your skin was the typical white of the digital circus's humanoids. Your cheeks had a permanent and cute little blush that got worse whenever you actually blushed. Your eyes were perfectly round. The name chosen for you by the digital circus was butter. You know, like the stuff you put on bread. At least it was better than the other name. That one had been censored and made Kane blush. And it started with the letter N, so maybe random letter generation wasn't always the best thing for this. You looked around the room. Its floor was made of grey wood that looked dry, maybe a little brittle too. The walls were beige and looked cracked. From a window, a white light shined into the room, with torn curtains hanging in front of it, just barely dimming the room. They gently swung in the air like a quiet, haunting dance, as if a light breeze was hovering around them. Quietly, you slowly peeled yourself out of your sheets, your naked feet touching the surprisingly warm ground. The wood creaked under your weight. You would have been terrified if it wasn't for the fact that you still looked like a goddamn clown, so nothing could really kill you. Meaning, instead of horror at your surroundings, you felt merely uneasy. Was this how video game protagonists felt in horror games? You shook your head. You needed to focus. You had no idea what was going on. You'd opened the door to the bedroom, leading into a long hallway. It looked similarly abandoned to the other room you had just left, with a faded-looking red carpet and cobwebs practically everywhere. The sounds of an old, settling building were all around you, giving you a haunting ambience. You gulped as you walked past countless rooms. In the middle of the hallway was an opening that led to stairs, which allowed you to reach a sort of entrance hall with a checkered tile floor. And like everything else you had seen, the hall appeared clean, at least more than the rest. The walls were covered by red carpets with intricate golden designs, while almost as faded as the carpets upstairs. They did make the entrance hall look a little more inviting than the rest. However, as your naked foot touched the tile floor, the noise of music made you jump. Turning towards it, you saw an old gramophone, spinning, playing the all-familiar digital Circus theme song. You gulped, as seconds later you heard Kane's voice echo from it. "Hello there, Butter! I apologize for the rude awakening, but I was just too excited to present you this new thrilling adventure." You somehow relaxed, hearing his voice. All of this was planned. There was no thrill wheel here. But with it came the comfort of knowing there still was this entity that just wanted to be entertained. And as long as you delivered, you're safe. "The adventure is called," continued Kane. You could practically imagine him excitedly floating above you as he sputtered his nonsense. "Mother knows best. But the mother is you!" You blinked. "So I know best?" you said jokingly with a grin. "Exactly, Butter. You know best." You deadpanned. "You will be taking care of your very own child. Just walk past this door and enjoy the burden of motherhood." Just as he finished the sentence, the gramophone burst into flames, turning it into ashes at an alarming speed. And 5 seconds later, only a black spot on the ground was left. That was quick. And chaotic. Typical Kane. Wait, was there really a child? Nervously you walked forward. There was a wide door behind where the gramophone had stood. It was padded with red satin and was the most clean and new-looking thing you had seen yet. You carefully pushed it open, entering what you'd call a cozy little room, probably the nicest in the entire place. The walls were covered by large black wooden shelves containing hundreds of books. A fireplace stood opposite to you with a warm fire gently crackling. And in the middle of the room stood a table with 2 chairs. On it, a tea set. On the chair opposite to you, facing the door, sat a doll. Not like Ragatha. It was a porcelain doll. Its eyes were blue, mouth as red as roses. It was shaped up into a smile. It had long brown hair going roughly to its shoulders, and was dressed in a dark purple satin dress. Your heart stopped a beat. You had noticed it at first, and now you were a little scared. A crack ran down the doll's forehead, going to her right eye, and from there down to its upper lip. Quietly you approached the empty chair before the doll. Pulling it away, you sat down. However, as you blinked, you noticed that the doll's hands had slightly moved, from neatly being folded in her lap to hanging sideways casually. Oh God. That's when you realized you were going to take care of a ghost doll. You gulped and reached for the tea can. The smell of apple cinnamon tea hitting your nostrils. It was warm, steaming just a tiny bit. You gulped. Blinking again, the doll's head now was ever so slightly tilted, curiously, as if whatever spirit was possessing it just barely had enough strength in it to lightly move the doll. You quickly realized only when you weren't looking this thing would move at all, so You decided to keep your eyes peeled on it as much as you could. You opened your mouth. A gasp was the only thing escaping you. Your heart was racing, and the hairs on your back were standing up. You exhaled, risking a blink, though the doll didn't move, or if it did, you didn't notice anything. And so, without saying a word, you pulled the doll's teacup towards you before gently filling it with the tea. Careful, it's hot, you said as you bit your lower lip. You pushed the filled cup to the haunted toy before filling your own. And now you remained sitting, staring at it, expectantly. After a moment of silence, you chuckled and closed your eyes, realizing something. And faintly over the crackling fire, you could hear the noise of porcelain hands taking hold of the teacup. The doll was moving, slowly, methodically, her motor functions being robotic, as if the spirit didn't know how to move properly. After a minute, you slowly opened one eye. The doll was holding the cup with both hands as she stared at you, unblinking. You raised your upper body a little to take a peek at the cup. It was half empty now. You broke out in a cold sweat, your heart beat increasing. As you sat back down, this was a new level of crazy. Well then, I guess, I'm your mommy. You spoke slowly, trying to comprehend the situation. And I guess you're my daughter, and, let's, have a good time? You sounded more like you were asking than genuinely commenting on the situation. You spent some time slowly and carefully drinking the tea with the doll. The tea was gross. While actually being a pretty good mixture, the lack of sugar was really annoying and very obviously just the digital circus messing with you. Considering regular digital food didn't have any salt, pepper, or other spices added to it as well. You sighed. Calming your nerves, you stood up. Picking up the doll, holding it close to you, like a baby. She was hard and ice cold. The way she looked up at you, almost smug yet innocent at the same time, it made you feel something. It was a mixture of horror and, strangely enough, a familiar comfort. Considering this thing was technically alive, it meant you weren't entirely lonely in this manner. But the fact it was an unpredictable spirit tainted this feeling. Together, clutching her, you explored the lower section of the manor. There was a living room with a TV that only showed static. When you turned it on, you noticed the doll was shielding her eyes from you, so you turned it off. Next, you walked into the kitchen. As you looked at the knives and then back down at the toy, it was now crying, as a thin film of water was running down her eyes. Don't worry, I won't stab you or anything. You blinked, and saying that seemingly had calmed the doll down as her tears stopped almost immediately. You're surprisingly expressive. That's a compliment. You said that with a smile that was meant to be warming and yet maybe came off as a little forced. The exploration of the house took the entire day. Most rooms were just empty, cold, and moldy, save for the room opposite to your bedroom. It was a children's room with a crib. Building blocks with numbers were scattered around. Gently you placed the doll into the crib, pulling up its little paper-thin blanket to the doll's chin. Awkwardly you stood there, forcing a smile before sighing in defeat. Gently you lowered your head, kissing the thing's cracked forehead. Love you, sweetie. I'll talk to you tomorrow? You were guessing the thing was an NPC, so it should be easy to please. The days in the manor were short. You quickly realized the day was roughly 40 minutes long, with the night being only 20, so a full day was 1 hour. You had once stayed awake all day and night, counting every passing second while having a day-long tea time with the doll. Surprisingly enough, when you actually took those 20 minutes sleep, it felt longer. Like you had a full night's worth of sleep. Like you got a full night's worth of sleep. The first few nights were the most scary. You were jumping at every shadow, every noise, and every morning when you came to collect the doll, it was already sitting in the middle of the room. The blocks arranged to the same number sequence. 9, 1, 1, 3, 1, 0, 1, 2, 4. You couldn't for the life of you figure it out, what it meant. After a week of that, the doll just stopped doing it. Instead of patiently waiting for you to enter its room, it had decided to sleep with you instead. At first it was just sitting in front of your room's door, then under your bed, and finally you awoke with it sitting on your blanket. As scared as you were after that instant, you just straight up took it with you in bed, cuddling with it. It seemed to like that a lot. Every day you spent the same way. First, go with the doll downstairs into the kitchen. The only items outside of a non-functioning stove and the knives there was a single 6-pack of Pop-Tarts. Its flavors randomized. You equally split those with the doll, one for each meal of the day, for each of you. After breakfast, you set the doll down in a child's room, leaning against the door and closing your eyes as you heard the doll push items around, as a sort of play. All it did was do that number sequence with the blocks, and then slam various other toys inside the child's room, such as toy nutcrackers with rifles and or swords, and plastic silverware against the walls like she was angry. When you felt like enough time had passed, you then would clean up the doll's mess. Before then taking it with you to the tea room, where you had tea together. After all, the tea was daily respawning. Once the drink was finished, the second Pop-Tart was eaten. Afterwards, you explored the manor's countless rooms. They seemed to shift, upstairs at least. Minus the bedroom and the children's room on the far right. Items would appear in them. They usually were seemingly dead doll husks, destroyed furniture, or letters with randomly generated words on them that never made any sense, but were still kinda creepy. You used the torn apart wooden furniture to feed the flames in the manor's fireplace. And whenever that was done with it, the time for the third Pop-Tart had stricken, shortly followed by going to bed with the doll. You tried your best to keep up conversation with it, telling the doll little stories you had come up with, or pretending to read poems from the creepy letters to it. As one of the stories you told was the story of Michael, the loneliest boy in town, the ugliest boy in town, ugly and weak, they called him a freak, so he lived on his own underground. He lived on his own underground. He lived on his own underground. Leaving letters for you and the doll to find as his only interaction. You didn't know where you had to come up with that story. It felt strangely familiar to you, like you heard it somewhere when you had been in the real world, as foggy as your memories were. You were lying in bed with your doll. It was gently resting on her chest, that you had lightly inflated to be a sort of air mattress for it. The doll seemed to be the most calm in the coming day whenever you let it rest there, when suddenly light was shone right into your face. You jolted up, screaming in terror, only to be met by Kane's face right in front of yours, his eyes floating a mere inch in front of your face. "Welcome home, Butter," he shouted happily. You looked around. The sudden change in scenery was too much, and you instantly got a headache. Too used to the greys and bears from the manor. What? Where am I? Where's my dolly? Around you on the ground, slowly waking up, were the others. Seemed like Kane just wanted to wake you up first, specifically. "Great job, everyone!" Kane clapped his hands. "Actually, it was Zubul who managed to beat the puzzle first, and therefore finishing the adventure." "Wait, there was a puzzle?" As you looked around, half of the others were averting their gazes from the other half of characters. Something was wrong. Kane, what puzzles?" asked Pomni cautiously. "Ugh. The puzzle on who the dolls were," grunted Zubul, annoyed. "Zubul, you shoved me into the fire!" shouted Kinger, angrily at Zubul. "Oh, I'm sorry, whoever was my doll. I thought you were just a dumb little doll." Pomni was embarrassed. Though hearing that, your eyes widened in horror. By a process of elimination that only left Ragatha, Jax, and Gangle to have been your doll. You looked at the red-headed toy woman. "Please, Ragatha, tell me you were my doll." She shook her head. "Nope, I was Gangle's." So, Kinger was Zubul's doll, Ragatha was Gangle's doll. You looked at Jax, who chuckled. 9, 1, 13, 10, 1, 24. I was literally telling you I am Jax. You slapped both hands on your cheeks as you screamed, as you were having conniptions. Though confused, Pomni raised a hand. Who was my doll?" "Oh, that's simple," shouted Kane. "It was me." Pomni's right eye twitched. We took a bath together." "And my skin never felt this soft. Great job, Mama Pomni." You approached Jax in disbelief. You... Accusatory, you poked him with your fingers. "You snuggled with my beep!" The bunnyman giggled. "They were soft and warm, and you didn't pick up on my hints. What should I have done but enjoy it?" You couldn't believe you had slept with Jax like that. "Isn't that right, Mommy?" Oh God, stop calling me that! Oh God, I told you so many stupid things! Among them was your dislike for Zubul. She was just negative energy all around. After the realization, you were blushing so hard before you fell on your knees. Gently he tapped you on the shoulders. Hey, it's okay. I won't tell anyone. Mommy. Your eyes suddenly widened. Do you remember everything? He leaned down to your ear, and with an evil smile, he said in a mockingly high voice to imitate yours. I think I like Jax a lot. He's cute. Honestly, I sometimes inflate my chest just a tiny bit whenever he isn't looking. Oh, sorry, little doll. I probably shouldn't tell you that. Oh God, the horror you felt in this moment. You felt like you were going to die. You aren't going to tell anyone. You promise. He just winked at you. As I was saying, shouted Kane, very close to you, as he realized you and Jax weren't listening to him. I am very pleased with this adventure, and since Zubel won, she gets one wish fulfilled. Everyone looked at the strange-shaped character. She sighed. No, Pomni, she said as her eyes fell upon the jester. I'm not going to wish for an exit. You know what happened last time. The last time Pomni wished for an exit to appear after an adventure, everyone's sleeping quarters had been teleported and scattered throughout the entire exit maze. For a week. Until everyone had refused to just simply leave their rooms for another week. Until they returned to the regular hallway. Zubel sighed. I wish that stupid screaming mannequin in the bathroom gets deleted. 9 times out of 10 when I want to take a shower, that thing is in the bathtub, just ruining my mood. Kane snapped his fingers. Done! Oh, thank God. Immediately Zubel walked off towards the line of doors that led to the circus's other rooms. Jax was in your room, leaning against the wall opposite to you as you were sitting on your bed. Your arms were crossed, and he had the most shit-eating grin you had ever seen decorating his face. I can't believe you talked me into this, you murmured loud enough for him to hear. You were unclothed. Come on, Mommy. At the time, I thought you were an NPC toy, and I could just simply say anything I'm thinking of. You shuffled uncomfortably as Jack sat down next to you. How did you end up like this? He was teasing you. He was flirting with you, and he was continuously calling you Mommy. It was too much. Putting a hand on your chin, he forced you to look at him. Without saying another word, he forced his mouth on yours for a wet, hot kiss. Your lips wiggling against each other sensually, needy, and filled with suppressed desires. His tongue brushed against the skin of your lips before you opened your mouth to him, allowing him access. His tongue was wet, thick, and hot. Unable to control yourself, you gulped down your mixed Zelvia greedily. Your legs twitched with arousal. And finally, he pushed you down on your bed, his knees holding you in place as he lifted himself off of you. He grinned down at you, enjoying the control he had over you. Now, do what I like, he teased. With shaking hands, you put a thumb in your mouth before inflating your body just the way he liked it.
Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive.